Welcome to Dairy Pod, a podcast series from Dairy Australia. Featuring a range of experts, each episode offers insights into Australia's unique dairy farming conditions, as well as personal experiences and the latest in dairy innovation.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Dairy Pod. I'm your host today, Paul Roderick. I'm the chair of Dairy Australia and a farmer in southeast Queensland. And I'm here today to have a chat to I can't call him new anymore, but our CEO Matt Shaffer. And we're going to talk about Dairy Australia's new 2030 strategic plan. We're going to talk about how we built it, the development, what we learnt from the past, and how we're going to implement it, and then some next steps after that. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Paul.
I guess we'll start with the planning process, and you and I have both done a bit of media, and we've done a fair bit of talking about the strategic plan internally and externally with dairy farmers and industry. There's quite a few common questions coming up. Would you mind, I guess, speaking to some of the themes that you've seen?
Sure. I mean, I think if we go back, this has been quite a long journey for Dairy Australia, and spent over 18 months talking to farmers and industry. And when I come on board, I spent the first sort of 4 months on the road visiting every region bar WA, which I did a bit later, but just sitting at farm tables and talking to them about what was keeping them up at night, how Dairy Australia could help, and where we needed to go in the future to support farmers. So it was very much a ground up approach. And what we were hearing are things around helping farmers improve their profitability and their ability to manage their businesses and to attract and retain staff and feel proud of an industry. So those were sort of the broad level themes that we were hearing no matter where I went in the country.
So we've talked a lot about how we went around the regions and talked to the farmers, and we heard what was going on, and we've had some amazing feedback. Sometimes, like the situation we're in now with the Middle East, that things are going to change. But what doesn't change, I guess, for us is those industry goals. Can you talk us through the industry goals, because they're pretty ambitious?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And certainly there's a lot going on at the moment in the industry, working through the complications of the situation in the Middle East. As you say, the goals are set because this is where we as an industry, farmers and NDA and our other partners in our stakeholder group think that we need to head. So the overarching goal that we've agreed to focus on is for every dairy farm to achieve an average return on total assets in the range of 5 to 6% to 2030. Now, that's the overarching goal with farm profitability. And so the way we recognize that is to say that the first of the four supporting goals is to increase the earnings before interest and tax of the majority of dairy farms by 30 cents per kilo of milk solids. So that's the target that we're aiming for in terms of profitability. We've got return on total assets, we've got the earnings before interest and tax, and we'll do that by focusing on productivity. And there are two ways we'll focus on productivity. The first is looking at lifting the utilization of homegrown feed by 1 ton per milking hectare. So that focuses on being able to use a very important resource in dairy farms to drive productivity and therefore productivity and therefore profitability. And the second way that we'll focus on productivity is by increasing genetic gain by up to $90 per cow entering the herd. And this means that we can continue to build a profitable, long-lived, healthy herd. So this last goal about increasing the number of heifers reaching the third lactation and beyond by 12% really does two things. It improves the profitability of the farm by keeping the heifers in the herd longer and reducing the cost of medicines, et cetera, and treatment because the cows are healthier. But it also provides a sustainability benefit in that it reduces methane intensity. So this is the and that we're chasing. And these industry goals guide our strategy. This is what we will focus on broadly for the next 5 years.
Yeah, you and I, Matt, have been around and we've talked to a lot of farmers, but what strikes me is the simplicity of it and the ease to get behind, because we've got a focus on profitability, but there's a little bit detail in behind there, but they're all very relatable farm goals that we think about every day. And sometimes I think we can complicate ourselves a little bit, but the simplicity of it has really resonated with the farmers. I'd certainly say that.
And I would agree completely, Paul. And that's what I heard again on my visits regionally, is that we need to keep it simple, be clear on what we're trying to do, be focused, to keep deliberately aspirational goals, to push ourselves to be better and to help the industry as much as we can. And we want to be able to concentrate the effort and investment for the whole of industry to deliver these goals to help improve farm profitability. So that's really why this focus is to pull the key projects together and drive profitability through productivity. And to be clear, what I mean by that is not making farmers work harder. It means making the farm assets work smarter and work harder for the farmer. So just to be really clear, it's not making farmers work harder, because they already work incredibly hard. So just a couple of examples on that, Paul, that might help explain what I mean. So we're working with our partners at the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture to increase homegrown forage. So by optimizing the management of mixed ryegrass and clover paddocks, that minimizes the use of fertilizer, which in today's environment would be really helpful. Maximize the value of that pasture and optimize the grazing techniques. And this will help farmers to decrease the cost of their inputs while making the most of homegrown forage production. We know that's important to a bottom line. And another example is around genetic gain, where we're working with Agriculture Victoria and the Gardner Foundation to use data from inline systems to improve our predictions of cow profitability, productivity, survival, and health. And this will help farmers breed cows that are more productive, live longer, and are healthier. That in turn saves farmers money, demonstrates the sustainable practices farmers do every day, and enables the heifers to live longer in the herd. So that's a win-win. And what we're really looking for in this space is an and. So it's not an or. You don't have to trade off it. You can have both things. You don't always get everything you want, but we're looking for those and equations where we can improve profitability and get ancillary benefits as well, such as talking about the amazing sustainable practices that farmers already do.
Are they achievable, these goals?
So not without concerted effort by DA and the whole of industry. They're deliberately set to be stretch targets. We really want to try hard to improve things for our farmers as much as we can. We will orient all of our investments and all of our work on helping farmers through the current issues through the Middle East, but also how do we set farmers up to be able to pass down their assets to the next generation if that's what's wanted, to grow their businesses if that's what they want to do. And how do we do that? So these goals, while they're aspirational, they help us understand where we need to focus our efforts.
Yeah. And from my perspective, and this is something that I've always had a soft spot for, is how do we get the next generation in? You touched on that farm succession, but also bringing people into our industry to work into our industry, whether that's as share milkers, relief milkers, young trainees, whatever it is, it's attracting people to our industry. So that's pretty important. And I think we've got, we say that people are an enabler of these goals. I think that's really, it's really obvious, but it's really good to call out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes to the heart of what we're trying to do with this, because the industry goals lay the foundation for a profitable, sustainable, and proud dairy industry. And I'll focus on that word proud for a moment, because if you want to attract new entrants, we need to make sure that we can talk about dairy in a way that encourages people to come in to talk about the good things that dairy does, about the valuable nutritional product that we produce and we feed the world with. And those things we need to do a lot better of. Now, the other thing that I would comment on is, from my travels, there are a lot of young people who want to enter the dairy industry, and we need to make sure we continue working on that. But we need to help them find pathways into the industry. So that's where some of our focus will be, is how do we enable and help young farmers to come into this business, and how does that then enable existing farmers to make the best possible decisions. So, I think that's such an important aspect, and not to be trapped by looking at a certain group of farms or a certain region or anything else. That we have a responsibility across the board to deliver value across every farming system, business profile, and region, whether that's small or large or grazed or TMR or family owned or corporate. And that's from Malanda all the way down to Hobart and across to Harvey. So we're working hard to make sure that we can work with farmers across all of those things.
Yeah. the people part is so important, whatever level it's at. Right through the organisation at DA, having good people and being able to help farmers do what they need to do. And we've talked a bit about those overarching goals and probably some of the enablers with the people. And but this is a strategy, and there's clear priorities, and this is where I talked about the simplicity before. We've got those three pillars around the here and now, I call it, the unlocking today's potential, the future focus, innovating for future success. And I guess, and you've touched on this with our herd longevity and things like that, how do we ensure a profitable, sustainable industry? And that word sustainable comes up a lot, and we've attacked that a little bit differently. So what's your take on that, is fleshing that out? I know it's probably going back a little bit, but what are we actually going to do about that to deliver value to farmers?
So I think I'll tackle one of those multiple questions first, Paul, and maybe tackle the sustainability question. So for me, it's about reframing this. We traditionally have looked at sustainability as an either or it's an imposition on farmers from outside farming, where we know farmers already do tremendous work on farm to improve the sustainability of their farms and their businesses. So sustainability is not just about what we're doing with the environment, how we're taking care of our animals, how we're using antibiotics. It's about making sure the farm business is sustainable and can be passed on to the next generation. So without profitability at the farm level, the rest of it won't happen and can't happen. So we're really clearly focused on looking at the sustainability across a broad lens, and that is set out by the industry, by Australian Dairy Industry Council, along 4 pillars that include everything from farms to animals and people. So we have to look at all of this in its totality. And so when we were creating this strategy, we use this farmer feedback to center everything we're doing on farm profitability. And it doesn't mean that sustainability isn't important, but sustainability needs to be hand in hand with everything else that's going on farm and be tied to the farm and be viewed from that farmer lens. So we need to be clear on where we're heading, how we're going to measure this, how we're going to report it, and we need to make sure that we align all of our investments to what will help farmers become more profitable over the long term.
Yeah, it really does give us focus, but as a board and as an organisation, about what matters. And when you've got a volume-based levy, and we're under, like all farmers, we're under cost of doing business pressures. We've got to actually start to really pick winners, and having this strategy as a real guiding light for us as an organisation, I think, is really important. If it doesn't fit in the strategy, then we won't be doing it. And so I guess
I think that's a great point, Paul. I think just to put a pin on that. Given where everything is, we will have to make those tough decisions, and the board will have to make those tough decisions on what we don't do, because as you say, we can't do everything. We can't be all things to all people. So we need the focus, which is what the strategy allows us to do and gives us a framework to make those decisions to make sure we're delivering for farmers.
Yeah, we spent a bit of time obviously looking forward with the strategy. We looked through the development. So that's looking backwards a bit, but looking forward to how we're going to implement. But we've taken a period of time at the organisation to do some reflection, and we had an independent review of performance, which is quite common, and it comes up every 4 years, I think. But what have we learned, and what are we putting in place already out of that? Because it is a good time to reflect, and if you don't learn on some of the things you've done in the past, then what's the point of these reviews? So what's your take on that, Matt, as an organisation now?
Well, first I'd say that like any form of audit or review, it's a chance to learn and how to improve what we're doing. So it's a chance to look and say, oh, these are the things we're doing well, these are the things we can improve on. And so I think we need to take this opportunity to say, well, how can we improve? And we're all in a continuous improvement cycle. So from my point of view, the independent review didn't pull up anything that we hadn't really considered yet. So we've done so much consultation with our stakeholders and our farmers that we'd heard most of that. And it was good to see it confirmed that we were on the right track. And there was some really good positive feedback in their review. For instance, they called out the strength of our governance processes, the work that we do in trade and market access to ensure that our farmers have export markets for 36% of their milk every year, and how we lead agriculture and in some cases the world through our Australian dairy sustainability framework. So it's really good to see those positives called out. On the other hand, it also was a great thing to hear where we need to improve and can improve. And so one of those things is, what's the clarity about a role? What are we here to do? What don't we do? And there's still some confusion amongst our stakeholders about that. And so we need to be clear on that. That's on us to articulate that better. And that it includes the way that we engage and communicate with farmers. Are we engaging with farmers and communicate them in ways that they want us to talk to them? Do we need to review all of that? And so the answer that came out of the review is yes, we do. So that's what we're doing. And one of the other things that came out was farmers wanting better visibility of the on-farm outcomes that we're doing. So again, that's such a great tool to look at and say, well, how do we do this in a better way? So a lot of this we'd already been working on through the strategic plan. So it was great to say, well, we're actually already doing things on this. So together, the review and the strategic plan really provide us with a clear framework for delivering practical outcomes that support dairy farmers, not only today, but into the next 5, 10, 20 years.
That's a lot, and there's a lot in that. But the beauty of this being a podcast, and I'm sure we're hopefully achieving some of these goals of talking to people. Hopefully they're sitting in the tractor or putting out the feed or moving the cows in. So we are looking at different ways we can connect, and hopefully this is a little snapshot of time of what happens inside Dairy Australia and what we've been doing. And hopefully opens up a lot of questions for farmers. That's what I'd hope. And then they go looking for some of those answers. And there's no right way for everyone to communicate, but hopefully we're going to find some ways to get that information through. What are the next steps, and how are we going to measure this, Matt? Like, it's all very well, and this will mean different things to different people. What are the levels of planning to going into measuring our achievements against these goals, and ultimately, how will we be successful?
No, that's a great question, Paul. And there are a couple of different layers of answer to that, as you might expect. And from a strategic plan point of view, we've got some really clear measures in there about what we're aiming to achieve over the next 5 years. So we will report on our progress against those goals every 6 months, and that will be a public report that we can talk about and people can see how we're tracking. We will also at that same time report on our work on responding to the review of independent review of performance. So we'll be quite open about what we're doing, how we're going about it, the changes we're making. So that will happen twice a year. In addition, and we're currently in the midst of this, is our annual investment plan, which sets priorities for next year, and that determines on an annual basis, after consultation with farmers, with the regions, with Australian dairy farmers, etc., where we're heading in the next 12 months. So it's shaped by the farmer feedback, the industry goals, and the priorities, and it takes into account the needs and challenges across the region. So not every region is the same. Not every region has the same needs and challenges. So we have to adapt and be flexible on that. So that's every year we go through that annual investment plan procedure, and we report on that on a regular basis as well. If anybody's wondering where they can find the scorecard, the first one, including all of our baseline measures, is in the Strategic Plan 2030 on our website. So that's the opening ball in this game, and there'll be another one coming up after the end of June.
That's some nighttime reading there, Matt.
We've tried to keep it short, Paul. To back to your point about keeping it simple, we've tried to keep it much simpler.
Yeah, and the beauty of a strategic plan is that you can pick it up, and there is a one-page, I guess, headline of where we want to head as an industry, and those industry goals are up top, those strategic goals, and then and then that plan, those enablers about how we get there. So if you want more detail, you definitely can find the full strategic plan on the website, and there'll be some of us out there that like digging in the detail, and I encourage you to do that. But really, it's where the rubber hits the road. It'll be out in the regions, and so you've always got your regional teams, the people that you usually contact at Dairy Australia. And thank you. It's been a bit different sitting down with you, me in the interviewing chair and you in the hot seat. But
That's
it's
unusual,
been great.
Paul.
And it's unusual for you to do more talking than me. So thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you again later.
Yeah, thanks all. That's a goodbye from me as well. And just before we go, I'd like to say thanks to all of those farmers and DA staff and stakeholders who contributed to the massive effort that ended up where we are with this strategic plan, and those who also participated in an independent review of performance. It's a team effort, and we're all working together to make a stronger dairy industry.
Thank you for joining today's Dairy Pod episode. We hope you found it enjoyable and insightful. For more information, check out the episode notes. You can stay up to date by following Dairy Pod on your favourite podcast platform. To get in touch, visit dairyaustralia.com.au. Until next time, take care.